I stood in the hallway, holding the eviction notice I'd drafted in my head, while my mother, sister, and brother screamed that I was the source of their misery. They wanted me gone, so I granted their wish, along with canceling the credit cards, the utilities, and the mortgage payments they didn't know I made. The migraine had started somewhere between the quarterly budget review and the passive-aggressive email from legal. But by the time I pulled into the driveway of the house I had bought 3 years ago, it was a full-blown thumping behind my left eye. I sat in my car for a moment, the engine ticking as it cooled, just breathing in the silence. It was the only silence I ever got. Inside that house, chaos reigned. It was a chaos I paid for, a chaos I managed, and a chaos I was increasingly finding harder to survive. I grabbed my bag, a heavy leather tote filled with the laptop that essentially contained my life, and stepped out into the humid evening air. I just wanted a glass of water and maybe a dark room for 20 minutes before I started on dinner. That was the routine. I worked 10 hours at the office, then I came home and worked another 5 hours managing the lives of 3 adults who seemed incapable of handling a utility bill. But when I opened the front door, the atmosphere was wrong. Usually, the television would be blaring some reality show, or Cora would be filming a Get Ready With Me in the hallway with her ring light, blinding anyone who tried to walk past. Usually, Jack would be on the couch, shouting at a video game or complaining about his latest failed crypto investment. Tonight it was quiet, too quiet. I walked into the living room and stopped. They were all there, sitting, waiting. My mother, Janice, sat in the center of the plush beige sectional I had paid off last month. Her hands were clasped in her lap, her face set in a mask of tragic determination. To her left was Cora, my younger sister, who looked like she had been crying, though her makeup was suspiciously perfect. To her right was Jack, my brother, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, looking at the floor. And standing behind the couch, like a conductor presiding over an orchestra, was Christian, Cora's fiancé. "Emilia," Christian said, his voice smooth, practiced, the tone of a man who sold vague life coaching packages on Instagram for a living. "We're glad you're home. We need to have a family meeting." I dropped my keys on the console table. The clatter sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. "I have a migraine, Christian. Can this wait? And since when do you call family meetings in my house?" "It's about the house, actually," Cora piped up, her voice trembling with that theatrical fragility she had perfected. I narrowed my eyes. What about the house? Did the water heater break again? "No," Janice said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were cold. Hard. There was no warmth there, no maternal concern for the fact that I looked like I was about to pass out from exhaustion. "We've been talking, all of us, and we've realized something important." "Okay," I said slowly, moving to the armchair in the corner, the only piece of furniture nobody else claimed. "What have you realized?" Jack looked up then, his face flushed. "That you're holding us back, Em." I blinked. "I'm sorry, I'm holding you back." "You control everything," Cora said, her voice rising in pitch. She stood up, smoothing down her designer dress, a dress I had put on my credit card because she needed it for her brand. "You treat us like children. You hold money over our heads. You make us feel small." "I pay the bills," I said, my voice flat. "That's not holding money over your heads. That's keeping the lights on." "See," Christian pointed a finger at me. "That right there, that transactionality. You think because you have the high-paying job you own them, you own their dignity." I rubbed my temple, the throbbing becoming a jackhammer. "Christian, you don't even live here. Please stop psychoanalyzing me and tell me what you want." "We want you to move out," Janice stated. The room seemed to tilt. "Excuse me." "Cora and Christian are getting married," Janice continued, as if discussing the weather. "They need a start, a real start. This house, it's perfect for a young family. Jack needs his space in the basement to focus on his business without your constant judgment. And I need peace. Your energy, Emilia, it's toxic. You come home stressed, you bring that corporate negativity in here. It's stifling us." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was a dry, brittle sound. "You want me to move out of the house I own? The house I pay the mortgage on. We've discussed that, Christian said, stepping around the couch to stand next to Cora. He put a hand on her shoulder, looking the part of the protective hero. We think it's only fair that you sign the deed over to Cora, as a wedding gift, a dowry almost. A dowry, I star. Ed at him, what century is this? You have the money, Emilia, Jack shouted, standing up suddenly. You have your savings, you have your stocks, you can go buy a condo downtown, something sterile and cold that fits you. Cora needs this place. Mom needs this place. We deserve to be happy. And I do, I asked quietly. You find happiness in work, Janice said dismissively. You've never been a family person, Emilia. You're cold, you're calculating, look at you now. Your sister is crying, begging for a chance at a life, and you're just standing there doing math in your head. I wasn't doing math. I was trying to process the absolute absurdity of the betrayal. So, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Let me get this straight. You want me to pack my bags, sign over a $600,000 asset to Cora, who has never paid a bill in her life, and just disappear. We want you to let us live, Cora sobbed, burying her face in Christian's chest. You've ruined our lives with your control. You make us feel useless. We'd be happier without you, Janice echoed, her voice finalizing the verdict. We really would, Emilia. We'd be happier without you hovering over us. I looked at them. My mother, who I had moved in after Dad died so she wouldn't be lonely. My sister, whose tuition I had paid. My brother, whose bail I had posted, twice. The pain in my head suddenly vanished, replaced by a cold, numbing clarity. It was like a switch had been flipped in the breaker box of my soul. You really believe that? I asked. You think you'd be happier without me? Yes, Jack yelled. Yes, Janice said. God, yes, Cora muffled into Christian's shirt. Okay, I whispered. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't list the receipts or the sacrifices or the nights I stayed up worrying about their futures. I just turned around, picked up my keys from the console table, and looked at them one last time. Okay, I said again, louder this time, if that's what you want. I opened the door and walked out into the night. The betrayal didn't feel like a knife in the back. It felt worse. It felt like they had surgically removed my heart and were currently debating who got to keep the valve. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. I sat there for a full minute, just breathing, forcing the air in and out of my lungs, trying to keep the panic attack at bay. They kicked me out. My own family kicked me out of my own house. I started the car and backed out of the driveway. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back and saw the warm glow of the living room window, saw them celebrating their victory, I think I would have vomited. I drove aimlessly for 20 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a mid-range hotel near the highway. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, and more importantly, it was anonymous. I checked in using my corporate card. My personal cards were all linked to the household accounts, and I didn't want to look at those numbers right now. The receptionist, a kind-looking woman in her 50s, gave me a sympathetic smile when she saw my tear-streaked face. Rough night, honey, she asked. You could say that, I managed to choke out. Room 214. Keep the curtains drawn if you need to sleep late. I thanked her and dragged myself upstairs. The room smelled of industrial lemon cleaner and stale air conditioning. I dropped my bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone started buzzing. It was a text from Cora. Cora, don't be dramatic, Em. We can talk about the transfer paperwork next week. Just give us some space. We're ordering pizza to celebrate. Don't come back tonight. Celebrate? They were ordering pizza. In my kitchen. Probably using the emergency credit card I kept in the junk drawer for household essentials. I stared at the message, the blue light of the screen illuminating the dark hotel room. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and stinging. I had given them everything. When Dad died, I stepped up. I was 22, fresh out of college, and I took on the burden of the entire family. I worked 80-hour weeks to make sure Mom didn't lose the house. I paid for Cora's dance lessons, her modeling portfolio, her endless stream of hobbies. I funded Jack's startups, pretending I believed in them so he wouldn't feel like a failure. And this was my reward. We'd be happier without you. I laid back on the stiff mattress and stared at the popcorn ceiling. The silence here was different. It wasn't the peaceful silence I had craved earlier. It was heavy, lonely. But as I lay there, the shock began to recede, and something else began to creep in. A cold, hard realization. They thought I was just the bank. They thought the money appeared by magic, that the lights stayed on because of goodwill, that the internet bill paid itself. They thought the house was the family home, a communal asset that they had a moral right to. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten that I wasn't just a checkbook. I was a director of operations. My entire career was built on logistics, contracts, and supply chain management. I knew where every penny went. I knew every password. I knew every legal loophole because I had spent the last 10 years closing them to protect this family. And most importantly, they had forgotten whose name was on the deed. It wasn't the family. It wasn't Janice. It wasn't even a trust. It was Amelia Vance, just me. I rolled over and reached for my laptop bag. I wasn't going to sleep. Not yet. I opened the laptop, the screen glowing bright in the darkness. I logged into my banking portal. Pending transaction, $64.50, Domino's Pizza. I stared at it. They were eating pizza on my dime while I sat in a hotel room. Enjoy it, I whispered to the empty room. It's the last meal I'm ever buying you. To understand why this betrayal shattered me so completely, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the architecture of my sacrifice. 10 years ago, my father passed away from a sudden heart attack. He left behind no life insurance, a mountain of hidden debt, and a grieving widow who had never written a check in her life. Janice fell apart, completely and utterly. She couldn't get out of bed for months. I was 24. I had just started my career as a junior analyst. I was supposed to be moving to Chicago for a dream job. Instead, I turned it down. I stayed. I took over the finances. I sold Dad's truck to pay for the funeral. I consolidated the debt. I worked 2 jobs, my analyst gig by day and bartending by night, just to keep the foreclosure notices away. Cora was 14 then. Jack was 17. I became their parent. I cooked, I cleaned, I helped with homework, all while navigating my own grief and exhaustion. I bought the new house 3 years ago because the old one, the one Dad died in, was falling apart and full of ghosts. I wanted a fresh start for Mom. I wanted her to have a garden. I wanted Cora to have a safe neighborhood. I curated their lives to be comfortable because I thought that if I made them comfortable, they would be happy. And if they were happy, maybe I could finally stop running on this hamster wheel of anxiety. But comfort, it turns out, breeds entitlement. And then came Christian. Christian appeared 6 months ago. He met Cora at a networking event for influencers, which was basically a bunch of unemployed people taking photos of each other's lattes. Christian was handsome in a generic, catalog model way, perfect teeth, perfect hair, and eyes that never quite seemed to smile when his mouth did. He called himself a life strategist. The first time I met him, he walked into my house, didn't take off his shoes, and asked me how much I made in a year. I don't discuss finances with strangers, I had said. He had laughed, a condescending chuckle. Money is just energy, Amelia. If you block the flow by being secretive, you block your abundance. From that moment on, he was in Cora's ear, and then Mom's, and then Jack's. He told them I was controlling. He told them I was stunting their growth by managing the household. He planted the seeds of resentment. He looked at my car, a practical sedan, and asked why a director didn't drive a Porsche. He looked at the house and asked why it wasn't in a trust for Cora. He was a parasite looking for a host, and he had found 3 willing victims in my family. I sat up in the hotel bed, the memories fueling a fire in my gut. Christian had orchestrated this. I knew it. He needed a house for him and Cora, but he didn't have a job, and Cora had a credit score of 500 because she refused to pay parking tickets. They couldn't rent a shoebox, let alone buy a house. So the plan was simple: bully Amelia. Guilt Amelia. Make Amelia feel so unwanted, so unloved, that she hands over the keys just to buy a scrap of affection. It was a hostile takeover. But they had made a critical error in their due diligence. They assumed I was weak because I was kind. They assumed I was passive because I was quiet. I navigated to the utility company's website. Account holder, Amelia Vance, status, active. I clicked on Suspend Service. Reason for suspension. I typed in moving out. Effective date. I looked at the clock. It was 11:45 p.m. I selected tomorrow, 8:00 a.m. I wasn't just turning off the lights, I was turning off the gravy train. Next, I went to the credit card portal. I had issued supplementary cards to all three of them for emergencies. I pulled up the statements. Jack, GameStop, Steam, Liquor Store. Cora, Sephora, Zara, Uber Eats. Janice, QVC, Home Shopping Network. I selected all three cards. Action, cancel cards. Report loss stolen. I paused. If I reported them stolen, the cards would be declined immediately. If they tried to use them tomorrow morning for coffee or gas, it would be humiliating. You've ruined our lives, Cora had yelled. I clicked confirm. I wasn't done, not even close. I opened my email and drafted a message to my real estate attorney, Sarah. Sarah wasn't just a lawyer, she was my shark. Subject, immediate sale of property, 442 Oak Lane. Sarah, I need to list the house immediately. I want it on the market by Monday. Vacant possession is not currently possible as there are unauthorized squatters on the premises. I need to start eviction proceedings against Janice Vance, Cora Vance, and Jack Vance immediately. Please prepare the paperwork. Amelia. I hit send. I closed the laptop and leaned back against the headboard. My heart was still racing, but the tears had stopped. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the project manager, and this was my new project, total separation. I turned off the bedside lamp and plunged the room into darkness. I wondered how they would enjoy their pizza when they realized it was the last thing they'd ever get from me. Tomorrow morning, the real world was going to come crashing through the windows of 442 Oak Lane. And for the first time in 10 years, I wouldn't be there to catch the glass. I didn't sleep well, but I woke up with a grim sense of purpose. The hotel alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., and for a split second, I panicked, thinking I had to get up to make coffee for Mom and drive Jack to his entrepreneurial meetup. Then I remembered I didn't have to do any of that. I showered, dressed in my sharpest blazer, and drove to a coffee shop 2 towns over. I needed caffeine, and I needed to verify that my digital scorched earth policy had taken effect. At 8:01 a.m., my phone lit up. Janice calling. I let it ring. At 8:03 a.m., Cora calling. I sipped my latte. At 8:05 a.m., Jack calling. I declined the call and opened my banking app. The notifications were already rolling in. Transaction declined. Starbucks, $14.50, Cora Vance, transaction declined. Shell station, $45, Jack Vance. It had begun. I took a deep breath and dialed Sarah, my attorney. She picked up on the second ring. Amelia, I got your email at midnight. Are you okay? This sounds extreme. It's not extreme, Sarah. It's overdue, I said, my voice steady. They kicked me out last night, demanded I sign the deed over to Cora for her wedding. When I refused, they told me they'd be happier without me. There was a silence on the line. Sarah knew my family history. She knew how much I put into that house. Oh, hell no, Sarah said, her professional demeanor cracking just enough to show the friend underneath. Say the word, and I'll have the sheriff there by noon. Not yet, I said. I want to do this by the book. I don't want them to have any ammunition to say I was hysterical or vindictive. I want legal, cold, hard facts. Draft the eviction notice. 30 days. That's the law, right? Technically, since they don't pay rent and never have, they're guests at will, Sarah explained. But given their family, 30 days is safer to avoid a lawsuit. I'll have the papers drawn up. But Amelia, you know they're going to fight this. And that fiancé of Cora, S. I did a quick background check on him when you first mentioned him a few months ago. I sat up straighter, and Christian Miller, or should I say, Christian Malek. He's got 2 judgments against him in Florida for fraud, small-scale stuff, selling fake investment courses, taking deposits for life coaching and ghosting. He's a grifter, a low-level con artist. My blood ran cold. He's trying to get his name on the deed, isn't he? That would be my guess, Sarah said. He marries Cora, convinces her to put him on the title, and then he has leverage. If you had signed that house over last night, he would have owned half of it the moment they said, I do. Okay, I said, my mind racing. I need proof, hard proof. Can you get me the court documents from Florida? Already printing them. I'll courier them to your office. Thanks, Sarah. You're a lifesaver. No, Amelia, you are. You've been saving them for 10 years. Time to save yourself. I hung up and headed to work. I felt strange walking into the office. Usually, I carried the weight of my family's dysfunction in with me, a heavy cloak I couldn't shake off. Today, I felt lighter. Terrified, but lighter. Around 10:00 a.m., the text messages started coming in floods. Mom, the power is out, the Wi-Fi is down, what did you do? Cora, my card got declined at Starbucks in front of everyone. Christian had to pay. How could you embarrass me like that? Jack, serious question, did you forget to pay the electric bill? The fridge is off. I typed out a single group message. Amelia, you said you wanted independence. You said I controlled you with money. I have removed my control. The utilities were in my name, so I canceled them. The cards were in my name, so I canceled them. You are free now. Enjoy your happiness. I hit send and turned my phone to do not disturb. I stayed late at the office, mostly because I didn't want to go back to the hotel. Around 6:00 p.m., I was packing up when the receptionist buzzed me. Amelia, your family is here in the lobby. They're making a scene. I sighed. Of course they were. They couldn't fight me on my turf, the house, so they came to the one place where they knew I'd be vulnerable, my workplace. Send them up to the conference room, I said, and call security, have them wait outside the door just in case. I walked into the glass-walled conference room 5 minutes later. They were all there. Janice looked frantic, her hair unkempt, likely because she couldn't use her heated rollers without electricity. Cora was red-faced, crying. Christian was pacing, looking furious. You, Christian spat as I entered. You are a vindictive, petty little woman. I closed the door behind me and stood at the head of the table. Hello to you too, Christian. Turn the power back on, Janice screamed. All the food in the freezer is going to spoil. The house is sweltering. It's not my house anymore, I said calmly. According to you, I don't live there. Why would I pay for electricity in a house I don't live in? It's illegal, Christian shouted, slamming his hand on the mahogany table. You can't just cut off utilities. It's constructive eviction. I smiled. Actually, I can. The accounts are in my name. I closed the accounts. You are welcome to open your own accounts. You just need to pay a deposit and show proof of income. Oh, wait. I looked at them. None of them had proof of income. Jack's business made $0. Cora was unemployed. Mom was on a small pension that barely covered her bingo habits. This is cruel, Amelia, Jack said, looking genuinely hurt. We're your family. Family? I asked. Last night you told me I ruined your lives. You told me to leave. I left. Why aren't you happy? We didn't mean it like that, Cora wailed. We meant leave us the house and the money, but go away personally. Ah, I said. So you wanted the ATM, just not the person attached to it. Give us the deed, Christian demanded, stepping closer. If you sign the deed over now, we can use the equity to get a loan. We can turn the lights back on. We can fix this mess you made. I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope Sarah had sent over. I'm not signing anything, Christian, I said, but I do have something for you. I slid the Florida court documents across the table. Christian froze. He recognized them immediately. What is this? Cora asked, reaching for the papers. Don't touch that, Christian snapped, trying to snatch them away, but Jack was faster. He grabbed the stack and started reading. State of Florida versus Christian Malik, Jack read aloud. Civil judgment for fraud, deceptive business practices, ordered to pay restitution of $40,000. Jack looked up, his eyes wide. Christian, what is this? It's lies, Christian said quickly, his face paling. It was a misunderstanding with a business partner, a jealous competitor. And the second one? I asked. The one where you were sued by an ex-fiancé for stealing her identity and maxing out her credit cards. The room went silent. Even Janice stopped hyperventilating. Cora looked at Christian. You told me you were an entrepreneur. You said you sold your company for millions. I did, Christian lied, sweat beading on his forehead. This is Emilia trying to sabotage us. She's jealous of our love, look at her. She's a lonely, bitter spinster trying to ruin your happiness. I'm not the one with a criminal record for fraud, I said coldly. It's fake, Christian yelled, pointing at me. She forged these. She used her corporate connections to fake these documents. It was a desperate, pathetic lie. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in my mother's eyes. Jack, Mom said softly, let me see those papers. The revelation about Christian should have been the end of it. In a normal family, it would have been. But my family wasn't normal. They were desperate, and desperation makes people irrational. Christian went into full damage control mode. He spun a tale about how he was the victim of a corrupt system, how he was a martyr for financial freedom, and how I was part of the system trying to keep him down. Amazingly, Cora bought it. He's changed, she screamed at me as they left the conference room that evening. You're just trying to manipulate me because you're jealous I'm getting married. They left, but the war was far from over. Over the next 3 days, the harassment escalated. They couldn't get the power back on because none of them could pass the credit check. So, they started blasting me on social media. Cora posted crying videos on TikTok. Toxic sister, abuse homeless. She claimed I had thrown my elderly mother onto the street in the middle of winter. It was September and 70 degrees. She claimed I stole her inheritance. People in the comments were vile. What a monster, they wrote about me. I hope she rots. It hurt, I won't lie. Seeing strangers judge me based on lies was agonizing. But I didn't respond. I didn't comment. I kept building my case. I met with Sarah again. We finalized the eviction papers, but I needed more. I needed to break Christian's hold on them completely, or they would never leave the house. They would squat there in the dark until the sheriff dragged them out, and they would blame me forever. I needed to destroy Christian's credibility in a way that even Cora couldn't ignore. I hired a private investigator. It cost me $5,000, money I would have previously spent on their groceries. Within 48 hours, the pie came back with a goldmine. Christian wasn't just a fraud in Florida. He was currently juggling 3 other fiancés in different states. He was running a romance scam. He would find vulnerable women, move in quickly, isolate them from their families, drain their assets, and then vanish. The pie had photos. He had chat logs. He even had a phone number for one of the other women, a nurse in Ohio named Brenda. I called Brenda. We talked for an hour. She cried. She told me he had cleared out her savings account and disappeared 2 weeks ago. She thought he was dead. He's not dead, I told her gently. He's in my living room. I'm coming, Brenda said. I want to look him in the eye. While I was assembling the nuclear option, things at the house were deteriorating. Without AC, without TV, and without my money for takeout, the happy family was imploding. I received a voicemail from a neighbor. Mrs. Higgins. Emilia, dear, I don't know what's going on, but I can hear screaming from your house all day. Your mother was on the lawn crying earlier. And there's a strange man. He looks like he's selling the patio furniture. I checked the security cameras. I had cut the Wi-Fi, but the system had a cellular backup they didn't know about. I pulled up the feed on my phone. There was Christian in my backyard loading my teak patio set, worth $2,000, into the back of a beat-up pickup truck. He wasn't just squatting, he was liquidating my assets. I felt a cold rage settle over me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was a violation. I called Sarah. Serve the papers, now, and call the police. I'm reporting a theft in progress. On it, Sarah said. But then I paused. Wait, Sarah, hold the police. Let him sell the furniture. Let him think he's getting away with it. Why? Because tomorrow is Cora's engagement party, I said. They're holding it at the house, even without power. They're using generators. They invited the whole extended family. Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, everyone. Emilia, Sarah warned, what are you planning? I'm planning a presentation, I said. They wanted a family meeting. They're going to get one. I called Brenda back. Can you be here by tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I'll drive all night, she said. The stage was set. They wanted to humiliate me publicly. They wanted to paint me as the villain in front of the family. Fine, I would play the villain, but I would be the villain who brought receipts. The driveway of 442 Oak Lane was crowded with cars. It looked festive, almost normal, if you ignored the low, mechanical hum of the industrial generators vibrating in the backyard and the extension cords snaking through the open windows like orange vines. I parked my car across the street. Beside me, Brenda took a deep breath. She was a small woman, kind-faced but with eyes that had been hardened by betrayal. Are you ready? I asked. I've been ready since he cleared out my checking account, she replied, gripping her purse. We stepped out. I was wearing the same suit I had worn to the office, armor for the battle ahead. As we walked up the driveway, I could hear the murmur of voices. My aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had known me my entire life, people who were currently sipping warm champagne and whispering about how cruel I was. I opened the front door. The humidity hit me first. The generators were powering the lights and maybe the fridge, but not the AC. The house smelled of stagnant air, cheap perfume, and stress. The conversation died instantly. 30 heads turned. Aunt Linda, holding a paper plate of appetizers, lowered her fork. Uncle Bob frowned, and there, in the center of the living room, stood the happy couple. Cora was wearing a white cocktail dress, looking sweaty and frantic. Christian was in a linen suit, holding a glass of wine, playing the role of the benevolent host. You, Christian said, his voice slicing through the silence. You have some nerve showing your face here. Emilia, my mother said, stepping forward. She looked exhausted. Her hair was frizzy, her clothes wrinkled. If you're here to apologize and turn the power back on, you can stay. If not, please leave. We're celebrating love today. I'm not here to apologize, I said, my voice projecting clearly to the back of the room. And I'm not here to turn the power back on. I'm here to give Cora her wedding present. We don't want anything from you, Cora snapped, though her eyes darted nervously to the envelope in my hand. Just go, you've embarrassed us enough. Actually, I said, stepping fully into the room, I think you'll want this. Because unlike the wealth Christian claims to have, this gift is real. Get out, Christian shouted, his composure cracking. He moved toward me, aggressive, posturing. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said calmly. They're already on their way, but before they get here, I'd like you to meet someone. I stepped aside. Brenda walked through the doorway. The color drained from Christian's face so fast it looked like his blood had evaporated. He stopped dead in his tracks, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. Hello, Christian, Brenda said. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the room, it sounded like a thunderclap. Or is it Mark? Or was it David when you were in Ohio? Who is this? Cora asked, her voice high and thin. She looked from Christian to Brenda, panic rising in her chest. Christian, who is she? She's nobody, Christian yelled, backing away. She's a crazy woman. Emilia hired her. It's an actress. I've never seen her before in my life. Really? Brenda reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of photos. She fanned them out like playing cards. Because here we are at Christmas. Here we are at my sister's wedding. And here is a copy of the check you forged in my name. Brenda tossed the photos onto the coffee table. The family swarmed. Aunt Linda was the first to grab one. Her gasp sucked the oxygen out of the room. It's him, Linda whispered. It's definitely him. It's Photoshop, Christian screamed, sweat pouring down his face now. Emilia did this. She's trying to destroy us. And what about the others? I asked, raising my voice over the rising murmur of the crowd. What about the woman in Tampa, the one in Austin? I pulled out the Pies report and held it up. Christian Malik, wanted for questioning in 3 states for romance scams, check fraud, and identity theft. He targets families, isolates the women, drains their assets, and moves on. I looked directly at Cora. He didn't want the house for you, Cora. He wanted the equity. He was going to get his name on the deed, take out a second mortgage, and vanish, just like he did to Brenda. Cora was shaking. She looked at Christian, her eyes wide with horror. Christian, tell me it's not true. Christian looked around the room. He saw the angry faces of my uncles. He saw the doubt in my mother's eyes. He saw the jig was up. His face changed. The charm vanished, replaced by a sneer of pure malice. You stupid little girl, he spat at Cora. You think I wanted you? You're a whiny, spoiled brat with no job and no future. I was doing you a favor. I was going to take the house and leave you to your miserable family. The room erupted. Uncle Bob lunged forward, but Christian was faster. He bolted for the back door, knocking over a tray of champagne flutes. He's running, Jack yelled, finally finding his voice. Let him go, I said calmly. Why? Mom shrieked. He stole the patio furniture. He stole my jewelry. Because, I said, pointing to the window. Blue and red lights flashed against the living room walls. The siren wailed, cutting through the hum of the generator. I had timed the call perfectly. We watched through the bay window as 2 police officers intercepted Christian halfway across the lawn. He tried to scramble over the fence, but he slipped. They had him cuffed and against the hood of the cruiser in seconds. I turned back to the room. The silence returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't hostile. It was heavy with shame. Cora sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. Janice stood frozen, looking at the photos scattered on the table. Jack was staring at the floor. Well, I said, smoothing my blazer. Happy engagement. The party ended abruptly. My aunts and uncles, muttering apologies and casting pitying glances at my mother, shuffled out the door as fast as they could. They didn't want to be part of the cleanup. They didn't want to witness the fallout. Within 20 minutes, it was just the 4 of us, and Brenda. Brenda touched my arm. I need to go give a statement to the officers. Thank you, Emilia, for giving me the chance to see him in cuffs. Thank you, Brenda, I said. I'll wire you the reimbursement for your travel tonight. She left, and the front door clicked shut. I stood in the hallway, clutching my purse. The house was stiflingly hot. Emilia, Mom said. Her voice was small, trembling. She was sitting on the couch next to a weeping Cora. Thank God you found out. Thank God you stopped him. I didn't do it for you, I said quietly. I did it because he was stealing from me. We know, Janice said, waving her hand dismissively. It's all a mess, but it's over now. He's gone. She looked up at me, and I saw the familiar expectation returning to her eyes. The gears were turning. The crisis was over, so the status quo could return. So, she said, managing a weak smile. When can you get the power back on? It's unbearable in here, and we need to get the food back in the fridge before it all spoils. Jack nodded, looking up. Yeah, and I think he took my laptop too. Can we claim that on your insurance? I stared at them. They didn't get it. They truly, deeply didn't get it. They thought this was just a hiccup. A dramatic episode in the sitcom of our lives where I saved the day, reset the scene, and we all went back to our assigned roles. "I'm not turning the power back on," I said. Cora stopped crying. She looked up, her mascara smeared down her cheeks. "What?" "I'm not turning the power back on," I repeated, "and I'm not claiming anything on my insurance for you." "But he's gone," Janice stammered. "The bad guy is gone, we're family, you can't leave us like this." "You told me," I said, measuring every word, "that I ruined your lives. You told me you would be happier without me. You tried to bully me into giving away my biggest asset to a conman because you were too greedy to do your own due diligence." "We were manipulated," Cora cried. "He brainwashed us." "He played on your entitlement," I corrected. "He didn't have to work very hard, Cora. He just told you what you wanted to hear, that you deserved everything without working for it. And you, Mom, you let him treat me like an enemy in my own house because he promised you a life where I didn't have to control you." "I was wrong," Janice whispered. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Now please, Amelia, fix this." "I am fixing it," I said. "The house is listed. The for sale sign goes up tomorrow morning. The eviction notice stands. You have 27 days left to find a new place." "You can't be serious," Jack said, standing up. "Where are we supposed to go?" "You're 27, Jack," I said. "Get a job, any job, rent a room, figure it out." "And me?" Mom asked, her voice trembling with genuine fear. "I'm your mother." "And I've supported you for 10 years," I said. "I've paid every bill, I've bought every meal. And in return, you sided with a stranger who wanted to rob me. I will help you find a small senior apartment. I will pay the deposit and the first month's rent. After that, you are on your own. You have your pension. You'll have to learn to budget." "You're heartless," Cora spat, the old anger flaring up. "No," I said, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over me. "I'm just done." I turned and walked toward the door. "Amelia," Mom screamed after me, "if you walk out that door, don't you dare come back." I paused with my hand on the knob. I looked back at the dark, hot house, at the family that had drained me dry for a decade. "Don't worry," I said, "I won't." Epilogue 3 months later. The closing on the house was finalized yesterday. It sold for $50,000 over asking price. I used the money to buy a sleek, modern condo in the city, close to work, with a doorman and a view of the skyline. It's quiet here. I blocked their numbers the day I left. Sarah, my lawyer, handles all communication. I hear things through the grapevine, of course. Aunt Linda called me a few weeks ago, finally apologetic. She told me that Jack is working at a warehouse and hating every minute of it. Cora is living on a friend's couch and actually had to get a job as a receptionist. Mom is in a small one-bedroom apartment. She calls Aunt Linda every day to complain about how small it is, about how she has to cook her own meals, about how ungrateful I am. But she pays her own rent. Christian is awaiting trial. It turns out he had a lot of warrants. He won't be scamming anyone for a long, long time. I sat on my balcony this morning, drinking coffee out of a mug that I bought just for me. The sun was coming up over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I realized I didn't have a migraine. I hadn't had a migraine in 3 months. I took a sip of coffee and breathed in the cool morning air. It tasted like freedom. They said they'd be happier without me. I don't know if that's true, but I know one thing for sure. I am infinitely happier without them.